The summons. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council station Nova Prime hummed with ancient power, its walls constructed from star-forged alloys that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic governance. Commander Kira Vance stood before the massive entrance, her breath steady despite the weight of what awaited inside. Behind her, the diplomatic escort from the Terran Federation maintained rigid formation, their silver and blue uniforms crisp against the alien architecture. "They're waiting," murmured Ambassador Chin Ramirez, adjusting his translation collar. The device flickered with soft amber light, ready to interpret the countless languages of the Council species. Kira nodded, her sharp gray eyes scanning the towering doors. She had been chosen for this moment not because she was humanity's finest diplomat, but because she was humanity's most decorated survivor. The siege of Proxima, the defense of the Outer Belt, the Reformation Wars. She had seen Earth's worst and best. Now she would represent both before beings who considered themselves gods among the stars. The doors parted with a resonance that seemed to shake reality itself. Inside, the council chamber sprawled across dimensions that hurt to perceive. 12 thrones arranged in a perfect circle, each occupied by a representative of the founding species. High Arbiter Zelthorin of the Ascendancy occupied the largest throne, his serpentine form coiled in rings of shimmering scales. His species had ruled space lanes for 8 millennia, their merchant fleets the backbone of galactic commerce. To his right sat Warmaster Krovax, the Draxian commander whose species had crushed 17 civilizations into submission. His 4 arms rested on weapons of impossible design, each capable of glassing a continent. The other thrones held beings equally ancient, equally powerful. The Luminari, beings of living light who claimed to have witnessed the birth of stars. The Void Touched, creatures that existed partially outside normal space. The Architects, whose technology had shaped nebulae into works of art. And they all looked down at Kira Vance with something between curiosity and contempt. Humanity, Zelthorin's voice echoed without sound, translated directly into thought by the chamber's ancient systems. You stand before the council of 10,000 years. We have observed your species since you first split the atom. We have watched your wars, your chaos, your primitive scrambling among the stars. Kira remained silent, knowing the speech was rehearsed. You have expanded beyond your assigned development zone. You have colonized worlds without permission. You have created weapons that violate the accords of peace. You have refused to acknowledge the natural hierarchy of the cosmos. The High Arbiter's eyes, multifaceted like a fly's, focused with laser intensity. You must bend the knee, Commander Vance. Accept your place beneath the established order, or face eradication as so many upstart species have before you. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the station seemed to hold its breath. Kira took one step forward, her boots clicking on the impossible floor. May I speak? Warmaster Krovax let out a sound like grinding metal, laughter. The primitive asks permission. Perhaps there is hope for training yet. Speak. Zelthorin permitted. Kira's voice rang clear and steady. With respect, High Arbiter, I did not come to bend any knee. I came to tell you a story. Murmurs rippled through the council. No species had responded with anything but acceptance or defiance before military annihilation. Storytelling was unexpected. A story? The Luminari representative pulsed with colors of confusion. Yes. The story of how humanity earned the right to stand here as equals, not subjects. Kira's eyes swept across every throne. You speak of 10,000 years. Of ancient power. Of natural hierarchy. But you've forgotten something crucial about the universe. And what? Zelthorin hissed. Has our council forgotten? That thrones are built by those who sit in them, Kira replied. Not granted by the stars. Not ordained by time. Built. Maintained. Defended. And just as they are built, they can be toppled by those with the will to stand. The temperature in the chamber dropped noticeably. Warmaster Krovax rose from his throne, weapons humming to life. You dare threaten this council? I threaten nothing, Kira said calmly. I simply remind you that humanity has never recognized any throne above our own. Not kings, not emperors, not gods. We've spent our entire history proving that no power is permanent, no authority absolute, and no hierarchy natural. She took another step forward. So before you speak to us of bending knees, you should understand who you're actually dealing with. Not primitives. Not children to be scolded. But the species that looked at an uncaring universe and decided we belonged here anyway. The council chamber crackled with energy as the ancient beings processed this unprecedented declaration. The judgment had begun. The history lesson, 800 words. High Arbiter Zelthorin's scales shifted through colors that indicated deep contemplation mixed with something that might have been amusement. He gestured with one elongated limb toward a display that materialized in the center of the chamber, a holographic representation of Earth rotating slowly in the void. You speak of your history with pride, Commander Vance. Let us examine it together, shall we? The display zoomed inward, showing primitive cities, then villages, then caves. You evolved as pack hunters on a death world. Impressive for survival but hardly unique. 67 other council species share similar origins. True, Kira acknowledged. But may I continue my story? The architect representative, a being composed of geometric patterns that hurt to perceive directly, spoke in mathematical harmonics. Your species destroyed itself repeatedly. Nuclear fire. Biological weapons. Environmental collapse narrowly avoided. You nearly rendered your own world uninhabitable before achieving space flight. This is your pride. Ambassador Ramirez tensed beside Kira, but she remained composed. That's exactly my pride, she responded. Because every time we fell we got back up. Every time we created weapons, we eventually found reasons not to use them. Every environmental crisis pushed us to innovation. We didn't have the luxury of a peaceful ascension like the Luminari, or conquest of weaker species like the Draxians. We had to fight ourselves first. Kira walked closer to the holographic Earth. My great-great-grandmother died in the water wars of 2089. Billions died fighting over resources we later learned to synthesize. Her last message to her daughter, my great-grandmother, was simple: make sure this means something. She turned to face the council directly. And it did. That generation built the Fusion Coalition. They looked at the ashes of their world and decided that survival meant cooperation, not domination. They didn't have council oversight. No ancient species guiding them. No rulebook from the stars. Just the simple recognition that we either evolved together or died alone. The void-touched representative spoke, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Yet you brought those same weapons to the stars. Your colony ships are fortresses. Your merchant vessels hide railguns behind civilian plating. Your diplomats carry enough firepower to level cities. A pause that stretched like pulled taffy. You are wolves in the fold, claiming to be sheep. Wrong analogy, Kira corrected. We're wolves who learned that the fold is stronger than the pack, but we never forgot we're still wolves. And that's what frightens you, isn't it? War Master Krovax slammed a fist against his throne. You presume much, human? I presume nothing. I observe. Kira's voice remained level. Your Draxian empire spans 200 systems, War Master. You've maintained control for 4,000 years through superior military technology and strategic dominance. But your last military innovation was 1,700 years ago. You've been coasting on ancient victories. The War Master's weapons charged audibly. Peace, Krovax, Zelthorin commanded. Let her speak. I find this educational. Kira nodded appreciation. The Council represents the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Ancient, powerful, wise, but also static, comfortable. You've divided the galaxy into neat zones of control, assigned development levels, created a hierarchy that hasn't changed in millennia. You've forgotten what it means to struggle. She gestured to the hologram which now showed Earth's moon, then Mars, then the Belt colonies. Humanity reached our moon with computers less powerful than your translation devices. We colonized Mars while still fighting wars over water. We built the Belt stations while our home world still had poverty and disease. Every achievement was paid for in blood, sweat, and the stubborn refusal to accept limits. The Luminari representative pulsed with golden curiosity. You celebrate suffering? No. I celebrate persistence. Kira's eyes reflected the holographic light. When the Council discovered us, you expected us to fall in line. To accept our designated development zone. To wait centuries for permission to expand. To acknowledge your authority as natural law. It is natural law, Zelthorin stated. Advanced species guide younger ones. This prevents chaos. Prevents war. Prevents another cataclysm like the one that nearly destroyed the galaxy 6,000 years ago. And who decides what's advanced? Kira asked quietly. Age? Technology? Territory? Because by those metrics, the dinosaurs should have inherited Earth, not us. Age doesn't equal wisdom. Power doesn't equal right. And territory? She smiled slightly. Territory is just space someone else hasn't claimed yet. The council chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. You speak of the cataclysm, Kira continued. The great war that formed this council. I've read the histories you've made public. Dozens of species fighting for dominance until none remained dominant. So you created a hierarchy to prevent it happening again. She paused, letting her next words carry full weight. But you didn't prevent war. You just froze it in place. And now you're afraid that humanity is the thaw. The challenge. The council chamber erupted in voices that transcended language. Electronic harmonics, telepathic pulses, and sounds that existed in frequencies beyond human perception. Kira stood steady at the center of the storm, her diplomatic escort maintaining formation despite the overwhelming displays of power surrounding them. High Arbiter Zelthorin raised one clawed hand, and silence fell like a guillotine. You accuse this council of cowardice masked as wisdom, he said, his thought voice cold. You suggest that millennia of peace maintained through careful structure is, what? Fear. I suggest, Kira replied carefully, that peace maintained through enforced stagnation isn't peace. It's paralysis. A new voice entered the conversation. Counselor Miraseth of the Harmonious Collective had remained silent until now, her crystalline form refracting light into impossible patterns. Her species communicated through resonance, and when she spoke, the chamber itself seemed to sing. Commander Vance, your rhetoric is compelling. But rhetoric does not address the fundamental question. Why should humanity be exempt from rules that govern all other species? What makes you special? It was the question Kira had been waiting for. Nothing makes us special, she answered. That's the entire point. We're not claiming superiority. We're claiming equality. The council operates on the assumption that there must be rulers and ruled, advanced and primitive, those who guide and those who follow. We reject that premise entirely. She walked slowly around the holographic earth, her fingers trailing through the light. Every species here earned their seat through either age, conquest, or unique abilities. The Ascendancy through trade dominance. The Draxians through military might. The Luminari through technological transcendence. You've each carved out your corner of power and called it natural order. And humanity? The architect's mathematical voice held genuine curiosity now. What power do you claim? Adaptation, Kira stated simply. We don't have scales that survive stellar radiation. We can't manipulate quantum fields with thought. We can't phase through solid matter or calculate hyperspace jumps instinctively. But we can learn. We can change. We can take any challenge the universe throws at us and find a way to turn it into advantage. She turned to face War Master Krovax directly. Your species has 4 arms and natural combat instincts that make you perfect warriors. But my species made weapons so terrible that we scared ourselves into cooperation. We didn't need 4 arms, we built hands that could hold anything. We didn't need natural armor, we invented materials stronger than your scales. We didn't need instinctive combat programming, we created tactical systems that can outthink any biological imperative. The War Master's eyes narrowed dangerously, but he didn't interrupt. To the Luminari, Kira continued, addressing the being of living light, you evolved beyond physical form. Beautiful. Transcendent. But humanity looked at our fragile bodies and built ships that could survive black holes. We took our weakness and engineered it into strength. Ambassador Ramirez stepped forward for the first time, his voice steady. The Council sees humanity's refusal to accept your authority as arrogance. We see it as consistency. For our entire history, whenever someone told us there were natural limits, that some people were meant to rule and others to serve, that certain barriers couldn't be broken, that hierarchy was inevitable, we proved them wrong. Sometimes catastrophically, Zelthorin noted dryly. Absolutely, Ramirez agreed. We failed spectacularly and repeatedly. But each failure taught us something the Council seems to have forgotten, that rules are made by those in power to keep themselves in power, and that the only permanent law is change. The void-touched representative materialized more fully, its form almost solid for the first time. You speak of change as virtue. But change brings chaos. The cataclysm occurred because species refused to accept their place, each believing they deserved dominance. Billions died. Entire civilizations erased. This council exists to prevent such horror from recurring. Kira's expression softened. And I honor that. Truly. The peace you've maintained is remarkable. But it's peace bought by demanding every new species surrender their sovereignty. Accept your development zones. Accept your technological limitations. Accept that others know better. Accept that you are children to be guided by your elders. She met the void-touched's impossible gaze. We're not asking to tear down what you've built. We're asking to be recognized as peers, not pupils. As partners, not subordinates. As a species that has earned the right to determine its own path. And if we refuse? Zelthorin's question hung in the air like a blade. Then you'll have to enforce that refusal, Kira replied quietly. And we both know what that means. The council chamber crackled with tension. The moment balanced on a knife's edge, one side leading to negotiation, the other to war. High Arbiter Zelthorin leaned forward on his throne, his ancient eyes reflecting calculations spanning millennia. You would fight the entire council? Your single species against the combined might of the galaxy's oldest powers. Kira's smile was sad but certain. If you make us, yes. Because some things are worth fighting for. And sovereignty is at the top of that list. Then let us see, the High Arbiter declared, exactly what humanity believes it has earned. The trial of worth, 800 words. The council chamber transformed. The holographic Earth dissolved, replaced by a three-dimensional tactical display showing the known galaxy in stunning detail. Thousands of systems glowed in different colors, each representing council territory, trade routes, and development zones. Very well, Commander Vance, Zelthorin announced. Humanity demands to be judged as equals. The council will grant this, but on our terms. You will face the trial of worth, as all founding species did in ancient times. Kira felt Ambassador Ramirez tense beside her, but she kept her expression neutral. What does this trial entail? War Master Krovax rose from his throne, a savage grin spreading across his battle-scarred face. Simple human. 3 challenges, each designed by a different council member. Succeed in all 3 and your species earns recognition as a sovereign power. Fail even one and you accept council authority for the next millennium. A millennium? Ramirez protested. That's generous, interrupted Miraseth, her crystalline form chiming. The Luminari waited 3 millennia before being granted autonomy. The Architects 5. If humanity is truly exceptional, 1 millennium should be nothing. Kira raised a hand, silencing her ambassador. And if we refuse the trial? Then you remain classified as a developing species, Zelthorin stated flatly. Subject to immediate sanctions. Your expansion beyond the Sol system will be frozen. Your ships impounded. Your colonies returned to council oversight. This is your choice, prove yourselves or accept your place. The trap was elegant, Kira had to admit. Refuse and humanity became a cage. Accept, and they faced challenges designed by beings with thousands of years more experience. But she'd known this moment would come. The council didn't bluff, they tested. We accept, Kira declared. Name your challenges. The architect's geometric form rotated, patterns shifting through impossible configurations. The first challenge is mine. Intelligence. The galactic display zoomed to a sector filled with swirling anomalies. The labyrinth of echoes, a region of space where reality folds upon itself. We will send a human ship into the labyrinth. If you can navigate it and return within 7 cycles, you prove your mind's worthy. Dozens of species have tried, added the void-touched. Only 3 have succeeded. The architects themselves required 17 attempts. Kira studied the display. The labyrinth looked like someone had crumpled spacetime like paper, creating a maze where normal physics broke down. Navigation would be impossible with standard methods. Every path would lead everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Accepted, she said. The second challenge? War Master Krovax gestured, and the display shifted to show a barren world orbiting a dying star. The second challenge, strength. This is Kragnor, the war world. My people used it for millennia to forge our greatest warriors. Your champion will face mine in single combat. No weapons beyond what you can carry. No armor beyond what you can wear. 1 human against 1 Draxian. Ambassador Ramirez paled. The Draxians were legendary warriors, each one a killing machine honed through genetic engineering and lifetimes of battle. Their champions had never lost. The combat is to the death? Kira asked. To submission, Krovax clarified. We are not barbarians. But know this, human, no Draxian has ever submitted. Your champion will either find a way to make the impossible happen, or they will fall. Kira's jaw tightened, but she nodded. And the third? High Arbiter Zelthorin himself stood, his serpentine form uncoiling to its full impressive height. The third challenge, spirit. This one cannot be explained, only experienced. When the time comes you will understand. But know that it will test the very essence of what makes humanity what you claim to be. The cryptic answer sat heavily in Kira's stomach, but she couldn't back down now. We accept all 3 challenges. When do we begin? Immediately, Zelthorin replied. Your ship, the Terran vessel you arrived in, will enter the labyrinth within 2 cycles. You have those 2 cycles to prepare. Mirasetha's crystalline voice added, "Choose your navigator wisely, Commander. Many who enter the labyrinth do return, but not as they were. The echoes of that place have a way of showing you reflections of yourself that cannot be unseen." Kira saluted crisply. The Terran Federation has never shied from looking at itself honestly. "We'll be ready." As the council dismissed them and the chamber's doors began to close, Kira heard Zelthorin's final words echo in her mind. "I hope so, Commander Vance. For your sake and your species, I truly hope so. The last race that failed these trials no longer exists." Walking back through the crystalline halls, Ramirez spoke quietly. "You know who we need for the labyrinth, don't you?" Kira nodded grimly. "Dr. Elias Kaur. The man who's legally dead in 7 systems and clinically insane in 3 others. He's our best theoretical physicist. He's also completely uncontrollable." "Then we better hope his brilliance outweighs his madness," Ramirez muttered. "Because we just bet humanity's future on a trial designed by beings who have crushed civilizations." Kira stopped walking, turning to face her friend. "Chin, we've been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Every war we fought, every peace we forged, every time we chose cooperation over domination, it all led here. To facing impossible challenges designed by ancient powers? No," Kira smiled. "To proving that impossible is just another word for not yet." The Labyrinth of Echoes, 800 words. The Terran science vessel Prometheus hung at the edge of the Labyrinth of Echoes like a silver needle suspended before an infinite tapestry of chaos. Inside its cramped bridge, Dr. Elias Kaur studied the sensor readings with eyes that reflected too much understanding and not quite enough sanity. "Beautiful," he whispered, his scarred hands dancing across holographic controls. "They've folded space-time into a Klein bottle configuration. Impossible topology made manifest. The inside is the outside is the inside is." "Doctor," Captain Yuki Tanaka interrupted firmly. The ship's commander was a compact woman with iron in her spine and patience worn thin by Kaur's eccentricities. "Can you navigate it or not?" Kaur turned to her, his smile unsettling. "Captain, I can navigate anything that follows rules. The question is, do I want to follow the same rules when I come back?" In the observation deck, Commander Vance watched through reinforced glass as the labyrinth twisted reality into knots. She'd insisted on joining this mission over council objections. If humanity was going to prove itself, she needed to witness it firsthand. Beside her stood the Prometheus's navigator, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a young officer with an eidetic memory and natural spatial awareness that bordered on precognitive. He was their backup plan if Kaur's genius slipped into madness. Entering the labyrinth in 30 seconds, Tanaka's voice echoed through the ship. "All hands secure for reality distortion. Dr. Kaur, you have the con." Kaur slid into the navigation seat, his fingers hovering over controls that would pilot them into mathematical impossibility. "You know what the ancients said about labyrinths? They're not designed to keep you out. They're designed to keep something in." "Reassuring," Webb muttered. 20 seconds, Tanaka counted. Kira gripped the railing as the labyrinth seemed to expand toward them, or they toward it. Perspective became meaningless. The stars outside began to multiply, each one showing a different moment in time. She saw the Prometheus entering the labyrinth, exiting it, destroyed, triumphant, transformed into something unrecognizable, all happening simultaneously. 10 seconds. "Doctor, are you ready?" Kaur's eyes reflected infinite fractals. "Captain, I was born ready. I just died ready too. Also, I'm currently ready. Time is a flat circle and we're the stylus." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer." 5, 4, 3. The universe folded. Kira's stomach lurched as the Prometheus entered the labyrinth. Outside the viewports, space became a kaleidoscope of possibilities. Corridors of starlight twisted into Mobius strips. Nebulae formed impossible geometric shapes. And everywhere echoes. Picking up audio distortions, Webb reported, his voice strained. "It sounds like us. It sounds like us talking." Indeed, voices filled the ship, conversations that hadn't happened yet or had already happened, or were happening in parallel timelines that intersected at angles reality wasn't meant to bend. Kira heard herself giving orders, celebrating victory, screaming in defeat. "Ignore them," Kaur commanded, his fingers flying across controls with inhuman precision. "They're reflections, not predictions. The labyrinth shows you every path you might take. The trick is choosing which echo to follow." The ship banked hard, following a trajectory that defied normal physics. They were moving forward by going backward, turning left by spiraling right. Core navigated by pure mathematical intuition, treating space-time like a musical instrument only he could hear. "Doctor," Tanaka warned, "hull stress at 60%. We're not built for this. Nothing is built for this. That's why it's interesting." Core laughed, a sound that made Kira's skin crawl. "Captain, do you want to know the secret of the labyrinth? Will it help us survive? Possibly. The architects designed this place to test intelligence, yes? But intelligence of what kind? Processing power? The Council has quantum computers that dwarf human capacity. Raw calculation? Artificial intelligence can outthink us in nanoseconds." He spun the ship through what appeared to be its own exhaust trail, somehow ending up on a completely different vector. "So what makes human intelligence special?" Webb saw it first. "We can choose to be illogical." Exactly. Core's shout made everyone jump. The labyrinth is a logic puzzle with no logical solution. Every rational path leads to contradiction. Every calculated move creates paradox. The architects themselves took 17 attempts because they kept trying to think their way through. The ship shuddered as they passed through a region where cause and effect reversed. Kira saw damage appear on the hull before the asteroid that would cause it even arrived. "Hull stress at 90%, Tanaka reported, alarm creeping into her professional calm. Core closed his eyes. "The only way out of perfect logic is perfect madness. Captain, I need you to trust me to do something completely irrational." "Define completely irrational." "I'm going to fly us directly into a spatial singularity that should, by every law of physics, tear us into subatomic particles." Silence filled the bridge. "But it won't," Core continued, "because this singularity is an echo of a singularity that doesn't exist yet. We can pass through the shadow of a thing before the thing casts the shadow." Tanaka looked at Kira, who simply nodded. "Do it," the captain ordered. Core opened his eyes, and they blazed with transcendent understanding. "Humanity's greatest strength. We've always been crazy enough to try what everyone else knows is impossible." The Prometheus dove into the impossible singularity, and reality screamed. The warrior's path, 800 words. When the Prometheus emerged from the labyrinth of echoes 73 hours later, exactly on schedule according to external time, though the crew swore they'd been inside for weeks, the Council was forced to acknowledge humanity's first victory. But there was no time for celebration. On Kragnor, the war world, the second challenge awaited. The planet was a monument to combat, its surface scarred by millennia of ritual battles. Ancient arenas dotted the landscape, each one a testament to warrior traditions that predated human civilization. In the largest arena, carved from obsidian and lit by the blood-red light of a dying sun, two figures prepared to meet. Kira stood in the human preparation chamber, watching as Sergeant Arya Kloss completed her pre-combat meditation. The soldier was humanity's choice for a simple reason. She'd never lost because she'd never fought the same way twice. "You don't have to do this," Kira said quietly. "We passed the first challenge. We could withdraw." Arya opened her eyes, dark and calm. "Commander, with respect, that's not why you chose me. You chose me because I understand what the War Master doesn't. Which is, that strength isn't about winning fights. It's about knowing which fights to take." Arya stood, rolling her shoulders. She wore minimal armor, just enough to prevent lethal damage as the rules required. In her hands she held two simple combat batons, weighted for her grip. The Draxians are stronger, faster, biologically superior in every measurable way. Then how do you plan to win? Arya's smile was enigmatic. By remembering that superiority is a weakness when you've never had to compensate for inferiority. In the opposing chamber, Champion Vortek of the Draxian Empire prepared with rituals unchanged for 4,000 years. His four arms moved through combat forms that were instinctive to his species, each movement perfect, each strike capable of shattering stone. He had fought in 300 ritual combats and emerged victorious in every one. The human would fall quickly, he assumed. They always did, these soft species who relied on tools instead of claws, technology instead of natural weapons. The combat would be brief, perhaps even honorable. Then the Council would reassert proper order. The arena doors opened simultaneously. 50,000 spectators, Council members, observers from hundreds of species, and a small contingent of nervous humans, fell silent as the champions entered the obsidian circle. The contrast was stark. Vortek, towering and powerful, his scaled hide gleaming like armor. Arya, small and seemingly fragile, her human frame dwarfed by the alien warrior. High Arbiter Zelthorn's voice echoed across the arena. This combat will continue until one champion submits or cannot continue. No outside interference. No weapons beyond those declared. May the worthy prevail. A resonant gong sounded. Vortek charged immediately, all four arms reaching to grapple and crush. It was the traditional Draxian opening. Use superior strength to overwhelm before the opponent could establish strategy. Arya didn't retreat. She stepped inside his reach, her batons deflecting two of his arms while her body twisted away from the others. The movement was impossibly smooth, born from thousands of hours studying not just human martial arts, but every alien combat style humans had encountered. Vortek's first grab met empty air. The champion recalibrated instantly, his combat programming adapting. He feinted with his upper arms, struck with his lower. But Arya was already moving, reading his body language with the pattern recognition that evolution had gifted humans for surviving predators far stronger than themselves. For 3 minutes they danced. Vortek's powerful strikes carved furrows in the obsidian floor. Arya's defensive movements were minimal, efficient, conserving energy while the Draxian burned his in overwhelming displays of force. She's not even trying to attack, Ambassador Ramirez muttered from the human observation box. She's fighting the long game, Kira replied, understanding dawning. Draxians have incredible burst strength, but their endurance is limited compared to humans. She's making him waste it. In the arena, Vortek began to realize the trap. The human wasn't being defensive, she was being patient. Every wild swing he missed, every grapple she evaded, it cost him energy while she remained fresh. Worse, she was learning his patterns, each dodge more precise than the last. He changed tactics, slowing down, becoming more methodical. But this played to Arya's advantage too. In close, calculated combat, her human adaptability let her innovate in real time, combining techniques from a dozen different fighting styles he'd never encountered. 20 minutes into the combat, Vortek landed his first solid hit, a backhand that sent Arya tumbling across the arena floor. The crowd gasped. But she rolled with the momentum, coming up ready, blood on her lip but fire in her eyes. First blood to the champion, the announcer declared. Arya spat red and smiled. My turn. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. Arya abandoned pure defense and became something the Draxians had never faced, an opponent who treated combat as jazz improvisation rather than classical performance. She struck from angles that shouldn't exist, used Vortek's own momentum against him, turned his forearmed advantage into a liability as she targeted one limb to create openings in his guard. 30 minutes. Vortek was breathing hard, his movements slowing. Arya, conditioned by Earth's gravity and trained in endurance that came from being prey-turned-predator, was just getting started. 45 minutes. Vortek stumbled. Arya pressed. 60 minutes. The Draxian champion, legendary warrior of an empire built on conquest, fell to one knee. Arya placed her baton against his throat. Not hard enough to harm, but unmistakable in its meaning. Yield, she said quietly. You fought with honor. There's no shame in this. Vortek's eyes showed something no one had seen in a Draxian champion before: respect. His voice, when it came, carried across the silent arena. I submit. The arena erupted. 2 challenges passed. 1 remained. The trial of spirit, 800 words. The council chamber reformed around Commander Kira Vance for what she knew would be the final time. The atmosphere had changed. No longer did the ancient beings look at her with contempt or curiosity. Now there was wariness, respect, and something that might have been concern. Humanity has passed 2 challenges, High Arbiter Zelthorn acknowledged. You navigated the labyrinth through creative madness where pure logic failed. You defeated our champion through endurance and adaptation where raw strength could not prevail. These victories speak to your species' capabilities. He paused, his ancient eyes reflecting something deeper than calculation. But the 3rd challenge, the trial of spirit, this cannot be won through cleverness or physical prowess. This will reveal what your species truly values when everything else is stripped away. The chamber began to dissolve around Kira. She felt Ambassador Ramirez reach for her arm, but his hand passed through her like smoke. The other humans faded, the council faded, reality itself seemed to peel away in layers. What's happening? She called out. Zelthorn's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. The trial of spirit is faced alone, Commander. Every species that has earned their seat on this council has walked this path. Some emerged transformed. Others did not emerge at all. Darkness swallowed her completely. When light returned, Kira found herself standing on Earth. Not a simulation, not a hologram, the real Earth. She could smell the ocean, feel the wind, hear the distant sounds of a city. She was in Geneva, outside the Terran Federation headquarters where her military career had begun 30 years ago. "Welcome home, Commander Vance." She spun to find a figure standing behind her. The woman wore a Terran uniform, but her face was obscured by shadow, her form somehow familiar yet unplaceable. "Who are you?" "I am the question you must answer," the figure replied. "The Council's final test is simple. Why does humanity deserve sovereignty? Not why you're capable, you've proven that. Not why you're powerful, strength alone proves nothing. Why do you deserve to stand as equals among the stars?" Kira's tactical mind raced. This was a philosophical trap, a question with no objective answer. Because every sentient species deserves self-determination. "A pleasant ideal," the figure said, and now Kira could see her face. It was her own, but older, wearier, but hollow words. "The Council offers guidance, structure, peace. Children deserve protection, not autonomy. Why should you be different?" The scene shifted. They now stood in a war-torn city, Proxima Colony during the siege. Kira recognized it immediately. She'd lost half her platoon here. Buildings burned, civilians screamed, and in the center of the devastation stood a younger version of herself, face streaked with ash and tears, holding a rifle with shaking hands. "Look at her," the Shadow Kira commanded. 23 years old. Terrified. About to give an order that will save 3,000 civilians but cost 50 soldiers their lives. Is this the species that deserves to chart its own course? One that sends its children to make impossible choices. "We all face impossible choices," Kira replied, her voice steady despite the memories clawing at her heart. "That's what makes us human. We don't hide from them. But you fail so often." The scene shifted again. Now they stood in a medical facility, watching doctors frantically working to contain a plague that had ravaged the Belt colonies. Kira remembered this too. The synthesis virus of 2119, caused by unauthorized genetic experiments. 60,000 dead because humanity had reached too far, too fast. "Your arrogance kills you," Shadow Kira accused. "Again and again you grasp for power you're not ready to wield. The Council prevents such disasters. They guide younger species away from the mistakes they made. Why reject wisdom?" Kira watched the doctors work, saw them fail, saw the bodies counted. But she also saw what came after. The reforms, the ethical frameworks, the memorial accords that had prevented such tragedy from recurring. "Because wisdom that's imposed isn't wisdom," she answered. "It's obedience. Those people died because we made mistakes, yes. But we learned. We changed. We grew. If the Council had been controlling us, we would have been protected from that failure, and we never would have gained the understanding that came from it." The Shadow Kira's expression remained unreadable. "So you value the freedom to fail over the safety of guidance?" "I value the right to choose. To fail or succeed on our own merits." Kira stepped closer to her shadow self. "You want me to justify humanity's sovereignty with abstract principles. But that's not really what this trial is about, is it?" "No. No. The Council doesn't doubt our capabilities, we've proven those. They doubt our character. They want to know if we'll become like them, static and controlling, or if we'll remain us." The scene shifted one final time. Now they stood in the Council chamber itself, but transformed. The 12 thrones were empty, gathering dust. The great station was silent, abandoned. Through the viewports, Kira could see a galaxy ablaze, not with war but with light, with life, with countless species spreading across the stars in chaotic, beautiful freedom. "This is the Council's fear," Shadow Kira said softly. "Not that you'll fail. That you'll succeed. That you'll prove their hierarchy unnecessary. That every species they've controlled for millennia will look at humanity and ask, why do we need them?" And that terrifies them, Kira realized. Because their entire identity is built on being the guides, the rulers, the ancient powers. If they're not needed, what are they? "So the real question isn't why humanity deserves sovereignty," Shadow Kira concluded. "It's whether humanity will use that sovereignty to tear down what the Council built, or to build something better alongside them." Kira thought about her great-great-grandmother's final message. Make sure this means something. She thought about Dr. Korn navigating impossible space through creative insanity. About Arya Kloss turning weakness into strength. About every human who had looked at an impossible barrier and found a way through, over, or around it. "We'll build something better," Kira said with absolute certainty. Not by tearing down the council but by showing there's another way. A way where sovereignty doesn't mean isolation, where strength doesn't require domination, where ancient powers can coexist with upstart species as partners, not rulers. She met her shadow self's gaze directly. Humanity doesn't want to replace the council. We want to prove that the galaxy is big enough for multiple philosophies, multiple approaches, multiple ways of being. We want to stand beside you, not above or below you. The shadow Kira smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd shown. And if the council still demands you bow? Then we'll stand anyway, Kira replied. Because that's what we do. We stand. We persist. We adapt. And we never ever accept that someone else has the right to decide our fate. The shadow reached out and touched Kira's shoulder, and suddenly she understood. This wasn't an external judge. This was her own doubt, her own fear, her own question about whether humanity truly deserved what it demanded. Then you have your answer, Shadow Kira said, beginning to fade. Not because you passed some test but because you already knew it. Humanity's spirit isn't in being perfect. It's in choosing to stand despite imperfection. In taking responsibility for your failures and your successes alike. In looking at the infinite universe and saying, we belong here too. The darkness returned, then lifted like a curtain. Kira stood once more in the council chamber, gasping as though she'd been underwater. The other humans rushed to support her. She'd been standing motionless for only seconds in external time, but internally she'd lived through lifetimes. High Arbiter Zelthorin descended from his throne, moving closer than he ever had before. His ancient eyes searched hers, looking for something. What did you see? He asked quietly. The truth, Kira replied. That you're not afraid of us failing. You're afraid of us succeeding. Of proving that your way isn't the only way. Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly Zelthorin began to laugh, a sound like wind through ancient forests, surprising everyone. 3 species in 10,000 years have seen that truth, he said. The Luminari who transcended physical form. The Void-touched who exist between realities. And now, humanity. He turned to address the full council. The trial is complete. The verdict is clear. The 12 council members rose as one. Humanity has proven intelligence through madness, strength through adaptation, and spirit through self-awareness, Zelthorin declared. By the ancient rites and the trials that have governed this council since its founding, I move that the Terran Federation be recognized as a sovereign power with full rights and privileges. One by one, the council members voiced their agreement. Even War Master Krovax, whose champion had been defeated, gave a grudging nod of respect. Then it is decided, Zelthorin proclaimed. Let it be known across all civilized space, humanity stands as equals. No throne above Earth. No authority but their own. As the proclamation echoed through the chamber, Kira felt the weight of centuries lift. Not just from her shoulders but from her entire species. They had proven themselves not by becoming like the council, but by remaining uniquely, stubbornly, brilliantly human. Ambassador Ramirez leaned close, whispering, "We did it." "No," Kira corrected, looking out at the stars visible through the chamber's impossible viewports. "We just started. Now comes the hard part, living up to what we claim to be." Outside, across the galaxy, billions of humans and countless other species watched as the greatest empire in existence acknowledged a simple truth, that the right to stand is not granted by others, but claimed by those brave enough to rise. And humanity, as always, was just getting started.